When I was growing up in South Africa, access to media was very limited. So, we grew up under apartheid. And the times when we did have access and we were able to see certain films, it really expanded our view of the world. So that was why I think I originally fell in love with TV and film and storytelling and wanting to do make films and act in films and just tell stories. In this day and age that actors and storytellers are like priests, are like shamans, are like spiritual beings. They take on the human experience and they sort of embody it. And then they work through that, process it, and then they help others do the same.
Like co-creating with the universe, we can alter the state of mind, not only ours, but other people.
It's like this idea that you're taking your heart and your emotions and you're pushing it to the extent of human experience. And then why are you doing this? You're doing this so that you yourself can move through catharsis, but that everybody else can move through and better understand the human experience too.
That is something that every single actor out there needs to hear.
Like when you make a project, even if it's like a little short film, and you present some kind of new perception of reality, then it's like maybe two people watch it and they're like, wow, maybe that's possible. So that's why I'm still so excited about like filmmaking, storytelling, even though it's very, roller coaster journey.
Gabriela, thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. You are a powerhouse. That's just what I want to say. You are a director, writer, actor, producer, editor, and educator. It's a long, beautiful list. You have so much experience. And what I want to start with is growing up in Johannesburg and then later studying at UCLA in Los Angeles. How did those two worlds shape your emotional and cinematic perspective?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. Thank you. Okay, the two worlds. Well, when I was growing up in South Africa, access to media was very limited. We we would get things like Time magazine and it would be sold on the stands, but it would have been blacked out. Like big chunks of it would have been actually blacked out. Wow. And we didn't have, a lot of film and TV shows were banned. So we didn't really have access to the outside world. And so, we grew up under apartheid. And the times when we did have access and we were able to see certain films, it really expanded our view of the world, that not everybody was living under such restriction and oppression and constraint. And so that was why I think I originally fell in love with TV and film and storytelling, was because it showed me a world that was not like my own. And it seemed like a much happier, healthier world. Growing up in South Africa, we were very political as children just because you had to be. It was very overwhelming, the level of oppression that we witnessed on a day-to-day basis. And obviously I'm a white person, so I was able to go to certain schools and things like that, but people were not, like people of color and Black people were not able to go to the same schools as me. And that was just very hard to wrap my head around. It was horrible. And obviously I have a sister, and we would, make friends with all, everybody. And I remember once we went on a vacation in Durban, and we made friends with this like beautiful girl, and she was Black, and we were like so close, and we loved her, and it was just like, and then people were frowning upon us, and then I don't know, people were saying stuff to us, and it was just it was a very disturbing environment, to say the least. And I'm Jewish, so I also couldn't understand why Jewish people would exist in a place where apartheid was being upheld, because, obviously the Holocaust and everything we learned about the Jewish history and the history of the Jewish people, it's like, well, how can you then live in a place where you're sort of reenacting the same thing? So again, it was just very confusing and upsetting and disturbing. And so film and TV and storytelling was the way out. It was like a glimpse into another world that seemed possible. And very often we equated the United States with that world, because we felt like, oh, well, in the United States, people were equal. In the United States, people were free. And so I definitely had an idealization of the United States. And then it also seemed like the place where movies were made and truth was being told. I mean, listen, as I grew up, I realized that wasn't necessarily the case. We were, obviously we had a lot of access to, European media and media from the United Kingdom, and so we, our view of the world broadened. But it was that initial love of telling stories and film and cinema that really got me connected and wanting to do make films and act in films and just tell stories where the human narrative, the story of humans was fun and interesting and exciting and hopeful, and people connected with one another, and it didn't matter what your color of your skin was, and that we were all here to learn and to sort of overcome challenges and grow and develop. And so that was definitely a dream of mine to become a filmmaker and a storyteller. And so I was very excited when I ended up at UCLA, even though I went there for theater.
What I'm hearing, you feel like storytelling, it's something that it's this unitedness of people. What's the earliest memory that you have of you kind of feeling that connected to the human experience? What was the earliest?
To the human experience through storytelling. I mean, definitely, when I was very little, my sister and I, we would make up a lot of plays and we would tell our own stories. But then, we had an older sister who, she would always come in and play guitar, and through her guitar, she would sing us songs, and through her songs, she would tell us stories. And, my father would tell us stories about the history of his understanding of the history of the Jewish people. And then definitely, I would see movies like Guess Who's Coming for Dinner with Sidney Poitier, or even Fame, as like a young teenager. I remember watching Fame, and I loved it. I was just obsessed with just all these creative people in New York City, and they were working out their family trauma and their issues, but they were creating and they were telling stories. They were dancing or they were making music, and they were sort of processing the emotions or the feelings of being a human being through creativity. And that always resonated. That always was sort of where I wanted to be, because I was just like, we are creative beings. That felt real to me. That felt organic. And so that's why I think, one of my short films. I made a short film called Birth of Industry, and we cast this amazing man as he's kind of like the epitome of, I mean, it's an allegory, but he's kind of like the epitome of evil, in that at the end of the short film, this character, arrives at this room with him, and he's in there holding like a joystick, and then we're intercutting him sort of like getting really excited, like he's playing a video game with this joystick, and then we're intercutting like the atrocities of the world, like we're intercutting like images of famine and war and horrific images, but he's like getting more and more like excited by the tragedy and the trauma. And it was interesting because he was actually a priest. This man, he was a priest slash actor, and he was incredible. Okay. Yeah, he was amazing. And he basically had said that actors are, in this day and age, that actors and storytellers and filmmakers are like priests, are like shamans, are like spiritual beings, because what they do is they take on the human experience, and they sort of embody it and feel it and allow it to enter their whole being. And then they work through that, those emotions, process it, and then it's cathartic. They move through a catharsis, and then they come out the other side, and then that they help others do the same just by them sort of taking it on and embodying it, like a sense memory exercise. They then help humans evolve. And so it was really interesting to me that he was talking about, he was a priest, and he was just talking about like filmmakers and actors as being shamanic. And then that really resonated with me. And so it just
so much for that.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to the shaman. I have never that is so gorgeous that I feel so proud now that I'm an actor.
Yeah, actors are incredible beings. And, I mean, the thing, and acting in and of itself is such a, important and meaningful work. But I think that, it gets so mired in all of the commercialism of like, and also the superficial stuff of like, you have to look a certain way, and, and then also unfortunately, a lot of the people, some of the people making work are making very, just very flat kind of superficial work, that then it doesn't really have that same impact, right? But what is capable is incredible.
Gabriela, I'm going to be playing that back, what you just said. I'm going to have a short of this, and I'm going to be playing it back every single morning and before I go to bed, just to listen to it, because that is something that every single actor out there needs to hear.
Actors are incredible. They're so brave. It's like this idea that you're taking your heart and your emotions and you're pushing it to the extent of human experience. And then why are you doing this? You're doing this so that you yourself can move through catharsis, but that everybody else can move through and better understand the human experience too. And so that's also true of filmmakers, and storytellers. And so like now I teach filmmaking, and a lot of my students, at least in my one class, they're beginning filmmakers, very young. Some of them aren't even focused on film, like they might be exploring other things. But I always start with the first assignment, of making them, we always use that mantra like AI will not replace me. right? And so it's like, so then we always get into like, okay, so how will AI not replace you? Why will AI not replace you? And it always comes back to the human experience, right? The lived in experience of, we learn in the flesh, right? This is the only way, like the visceral, real experience of being human. So all of those things have kept me on this crazy, you know, roller coaster ride of making films and pursuing filmmaking. Is I do actually believe in the real importance of it. You know, of course you can, I mean, I think theater is also incredible, and probably even more incredible. And at this moment in time where it's like you're live and you're having the experience with other humans in a room, you know, so it's not just film, but it's any kind of storytelling. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I agree that theater even more so, because while you're in this room, you feel like the air around you is charged, and it's happening right in front of you, only for you. This experience you share with the people who are performing for you, and that's beautiful. Wow.
Yes,
I have like goosebumps because like
I
this
know.
is
I'm telling
I mean, you know, like there's there's
back.
really something there's really something about like being in a room and like seeing somebody sweat, you know, and like you know, and just hearing their laughter. I mean, I think as we get into a more technology and a world that is colder and more, we're going to be craving those experiences more and more. And I actually think it will be a resurgence of things like theater, and you know, just live and human to human. And yeah, so I think that's exciting. I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, I do believe that we won't be replaced by AI. I mean, it will be definitely coming, you know, few next years. It will be more, we'll have more large presence in our lives, which not necessarily is a bad thing, but we can see that people are still going to exhibitions and they want this, they can watch these things online, right? You have like all the Caravaggio paintings, for example, online, but at the same time, you just want to go there, you want to wait in line, and you want to have this real experience of like seeing something with your own eyes. And I think this is like deeply human. This is not something that, you know, can be replaced easily.
That can be. It reminds me, you know, I don't know if I mentioned this to you guys, but I recently went to there's beautiful theater that they've opened in Los Angeles. It's part of the Academy Museum. And they opened this just like state of the art, beautiful movie theater. And it's got like the red velvet curtains and incredible sound and image. And it's so fun going to see a movie there. And Werner Herzog was there, and he was there. They were showing Burden of Dreams. You know, I don't know if you've seen that, but it's basically the documentary about the making of Fitzcarraldo. And in Fitzcarraldo, they take it's all about this man, and it's based on a real person, where he basically wanted to take he wanted to stage an opera in the Amazon jungle. And so Werner Herzog, he thought like, oh, this was so incredible, and this is amazing. And he was like, I want to make a film about that. And so he went and he pitched it. You know, he told the story at the screening. And so he went and he pitched it to like executives, you know, film executives. And so they were like, oh, well, we can do this visual effect, and you don't really have to take the boat to the jungle. Like, who's going to do that? You're crazy. Nobody's going to do that. We can now with CGI, we can do it. And he was just like, that's not the point. The point is to take the boat to the jungle. You know, it's like the real experience is the point. You know, the actual, you know, us being here in the reality is the point. And so that's why it's like, you know, that's what we're talking about. Like this idea that you can actually replace an actor with an AI actor or CGI. It's like, that's not the point. The point is to have the real experience, you know, and people like David Lynch, you know, you talk about consciousness, and it's like when you have the real experience, you alter the consciousness, right? The consciousness that we exist in, the fabric of reality. But if you just sort of like put it on a computer, you haven't actually shifted anything. You know, it's like, it's the three-dimensional reality of changing that awareness and acting it out in 3 dimensions. So then you can go ahead and change consciousness. So, you know, it's getting into the idea of the spiritual aspect of creativity, and how, you know, that's something that you know, a machine couldn't replace, you know.
It resonates because it's
so yeah, there was sorry, Valeria, what were you going to say?
No, I was just basically mentioning that it's like co-creating with the universe. And
Yes.
what you're saying
Yes.
about the fabric, it's like we're all united in this
Yes.
kind of life. And by co-creating, we can alter the state of mind, not only ours, but other people. And
But other people's, we can alter the state of the world. And I mean, I really think that, you know, telling stories, you know, like when you make a project, even if it's like a little short film, and you present some kind of new perception of reality, then it's like maybe 2 people watch it and they're like, wow, maybe that's possible. Maybe I can, you know, communicate telepathically, you know, and then they start to open up the idea of telepathic communication. And then before you know it, like someone else thinks that, and then slowly it becomes more of a norm. And so yeah, so that's why I'm still so excited about like filmmaking, storytelling, even though it's very, you know, roller coaster journey.
I mean, it's just gorgeous listening to you. And I'm because I know you meditate a lot. You really have explored yourself as a human being. You do that also through your art as a filmmaker. Also, then when you're teaching, you're obviously, it's beautiful, making sure that also the young ones that are coming, that they look at it from all perspectives, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's
I had
beautiful.
actually, oh, thank you, Ava. Gosh, this is so ego boosting.
Take it. It's all meant.
Well, you know, I did go to the David Lynch screenwriting program. I'd got an MFA there, and so the study of consciousness and screenwriting, you know, it's very connected. Like if it's the Maharishi International University, so anything you study, you also study consciousness. So if you study architecture, it's, you know, the foundations of consciousness. So I really loved that, you know, and obviously David Lynch was one of our teachers, or, you know, advisors. I mean, we didn't have that much access to him, but we had some. And yeah, because, you know, for me, it's just all the same thing of like, through meditation, you know, we can obviously impact our environment. And so many spiritual speakers, you know, speak about that. That's actually called the Maharishi effect, right? Because they actually pay people when you go to the school. It's an amazing school in Iowa. And they have these incredible domes, like these beautiful, huge domes, and they're meditation domes. And they actually pay people to meditate because they have proven, you know, through science and through all research and tests and analysis, that meditation actually changes the energy and the frequency of not just the place that it's in, but even it goes out further. So that's why they pay people to meditate, because they firmly believe that the more people meditating, the more peaceful a world it will be. We will actually change the outcome. And right now I have an amazing astrologer that I follow, and people are like, well, you know, everyone's always asking her like, well, what can we do to help, you know, all the trauma and all the wars and all the horrifying things going on? And she just always says, meditate. Because the more that we find, you know, we work through our own, you know, negativity and darkness and dark karma, the more it won't be reflected out into the external world. And there's lots of spiritual practices like this. There's the Ho'oponopono. Do you guys know about that? The Hawaiian,
Yep,
the
use
man who
that a lot.
basically, yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. So he basically like healed a whole ward of patients just by using that spiritual prayer of I'm sorry, I love you, please forgive me, thank you. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the right order, but
Yeah.
that's the Ho'oponopono. Yeah,
Yeah. I say, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you, I love you. So I
I
think it
love you.
doesn't matter.
Yes,
I think it's just those four, and you can just the way you want to say it. Because there are
yes.
certain ways, though, it depends on, but you can. And it's beautiful. It really helps. And sending it to
It
others,
really,
it's
yeah.
gorgeous.
And for me, it's kind of like me. I'm sorry I ever doubted your love or I think we all, if you go into what does it really mean?
Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's so
Mm.
incredible.
I
It's
think
so
I think also
incredible.
for me, when you're talking about, which we go into Ho'oponopono, which I love, and when you're saying I'm sorry, sometimes it's also just saying sorry to yourself. Like we can be
Mm,
so harsh on
Mm.
ourselves and so
yes,
judgmental, and
yes.
we're our worst enemy a lot of the times. And that's where this has also helped me. So it's not just, it's also saying to myself, like, I am sorry, and
Mm.
please forgive me.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you so much
'Cause
for forgiving me, and I love you. And it's like me saying it to myself.
That's so beautiful. And it's true because like you are source, right? You are a
Yeah,
part, you are connected to source. So it is
yeah,
you. It is
yeah.
all our relationship with self.
Mm.
But
Oh, I
It's
love
back
it.
beautiful.
to, back to the film thing, because that's what we're discussing. I
I
know
know.
we can
I
see
I
you're
gotta
Get
see. I
carried
could
away.
go.
I mean, and they
Gabriela,
are so connected. I
we
mean,
gotta have
obviously.
another conversation with you. I can feel it's like I know what we can talk about too.
Yeah, but I mean,
Beautiful.
it's all the same, right? Film is a hypnosis, film is a meditation. And it was funny. I don't know if I had this in a dream, but I was talking to somebody where
Mm.
we were just talking about like film and image and shape. It's actually like a download, where you actually can download new information, new energy, just certain shapes and so I am also a hypnotherapist, and I do believe that film is hypnosis. So it's like that's why sometimes I'm like, all of these really horrifying, scary films that are, so popular right
Mm.
now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, obviously, them really amazing and incredible, but it's like we wonder why so many people are like having terrible depression and having extreme anxiety. And it's like, where did we get convinced that like being terrified, was something we wanted to for? And I don't know. It's it's
Yeah.
it's fascinating what's going on right now. I mean, yeah.
Mm.
Obviously, I mean, a lot of people will say, well, I love seeing horror movies because I can work out my fear, in a safe public setting. So I do understand that aspect
Mm.
of it.
You know what I think with a horror film sometimes? I think we are just a lot of people, and I'm not going to say that I haven't been there. At one point, sometimes you're so numb
Mm.
that you need this. It's
Mm-hmm.
like listening to intense music. It's kind of like shaking you up,
Wow.
that you kind of like can
Mm.
feel yourself, that you can, because if it's just too much, and when you're just, as I said, it can numb you sometimes.
Mm.
Wow.
And that's where I can think,
Yeah.
sometimes I think it is what people then need, like
Wow.
young people
Mm.
listening to this intense music, very like, heavy metal, they're just screaming and stuff. And I could, there's sometimes they just need it. They're like, because
Yes.
they can't
Yes, that
feel.
makes so much sense. Well, it's definitely a catharsis, right? Of just
Yeah.
like getting it all out, like going to these shows where you're, in
Mm.
a
Mm.
pit and you're just like, kicking. And I mean that I
That's the
definitely get
best
that.
experience I had the
Yeah.
full year. What was it? No, it wasn't. No, it was 2023. Gosh, it was 2 years ago already. And I love this group so much. So I went to their shows and I was like, in multiple occasions with different people who were like huge fans, like insane, not my level, but just like insane. And I was in the pit and it was the most cathartic experience ever
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're just surrounded by the people who love the same thing, the same music. They all sing, you dance, you move. And I don't know what it does exactly, but it's definitely like help you to
That
get rid
is,
of some sort of
yeah.
stuckness in life just for this one night, for these 2 hours. You're just, you're having a blast and it's amazing. It's
That is another really
and
cathartic
that's the power of,
experience.
literally the storytelling and
Gathering,
music and
music, yes, yes,
but
yes,
let's go
definitely.
back to filmmaking. So you have a prolific work. You have
Yes.
so many interesting projects that you were involved, and let's please talk about them. And I want to start
Okay.
with The Last Gunshot, where you took on
Oh,
multiple roles, and you were a writer, director, and co-producer, and actually an actor. So my question is, how was holding so many roles, and how do you navigate those different responsibilities, and also like, being like a producer and director, an actor and writer is like almost requires a different parts of your brain. But when you're kind of
mm.
doing it all at the same time, so how was this experience? How did you manage to kind of, do it all at the same time? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I made The Last Gunshot right when I got out of UCLA, and I had gone to UCLA as a theater student,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, it was an interesting place to be because it was like I was in Los Angeles and people were really TV focused, but I was a theater student and I was very industry focused. Um, and I don't know if I quite gelled with that program. Like I love theater and I loved studying the plays and things like that, but I felt a little bit of a fish out of water there. Um, so I think in some ways that might have been good for me because it made me very like ambitious. Like I really wanted to do something, So I had all this drive and this determination. And then so I graduated, but I felt, oh, and I told you guys I'd done this play right afterwards. I had written a play with a bunch of other women and we'd performed it. We put
Mm-hmm.
a lot of energy into it. But then it was over and it was like we had no record of anything. So I was like, okay, I want to make a film. And I learned editing. I got a internship at a post-production house. And this was a place in Hollywood. And I learned Avid. And that's what somebody had given me the advice. Even though I'd gone to UCLA as a theater slash film slash dance major, actually, I'd learned a lot about film, but I didn't take an editing course. And then somebody said to me, well, if you really want to learn how to make a film, learn editing. And and I had done a lot of cinematography like in high school. So I learned editing, and then I had written the script and I was debating about whether to do another play, put it on as a play. But then I thought it would really work as a film. So then I went out and I sought a really good cinematographer. And
Mm-hmm.
I was doing editing, learning editing, and then I found the cinematographer, and he was working a lot as a TV cinematographer. So he had lots of professional experience, and he really loved my script. And then I had almost gotten I was like a finalist for the AFI Directing Workshop for Women. I don't know if you know that program, but
Wow, yes.
it's an excellent program. It's very TV focused. It's very
Mm.
commercial focused. Because I've been a finalist there like 4 times, and some of the times they've told me like, "Oh, your work is too experimental," but they liked the script, The Last Gunshot about South Africa, but they have very strict rules, and they do not let you be more than one part. And that's actually AFI in general. Like if you go there and try to get a master's at AFI, you have to be a writer or a director. Like you can't be a writer director. And you definitely can't be like a writer director, actor. So anyway, so then I actually didn't get into that, and I was upset. But at the same time, I was like, well, I really want to act in this, And so I think having that relationship with the cinematographer, who was very supportive of me, he was very supportive of me being an actor, being the writer, being the director. And, I am very grateful to him because he did teach me a lot. And we storyboarded the whole thing out. And I did storyboards, and then I also did film frames where you actually, you find frames from existing films and you kind of lay them all out, which is very common now. Like you can go to Shot Deck and things like that. And so we got a real sense of composition and lighting and, just the whole structure of it. So we were so prepped. We did so much prep work that it was just like, okay, I can do this as long as the film is really prepped, and that we knew exactly what the shots were going to be. And then we got an amazing assistant director, but I will say it was very intense doing that all. And he brought his crew, who were very professional, and they were all men. I mean, they were all men. And they were just like, who is this girl? Like, who does she think she is? Like, here she is. She's doing everything. And I felt that. Politics on the set. I don't know if it's as much in Europe, but in America, and especially like American Los Angeles sets, these guys who like work all the time, and then they're kind of like, well, who are you? Like, what makes you think that you can like be a director? And people feel this all the time still.
How did you navigate that then? Because you're so new in it, and you're young, and you're like, this is your baby, and it's scary doing the first film. Like that is scary.
I was so brave. I mean, I just, like, especially when you're so young, I had such a fearless thing about me. Like, and I was used to dealing with the patriarchy.
Yeah.
Like I was just, I grew up in South Africa. Yeah, I grew up in South Africa. I mean, talk about oppressive male regime, and then my family background too. And then I got to UCLA, where it was nice, but there was also a lot of like structure and red tape and, hierarchy. And I think it just made me like more determined, and I have had a good ability to not care about, I mean, I knew there were moments on that set where like they were like talking about me, or they were like saying things about me, and I was just like, I don't care. It's my story. And listen, I got a lot of support too. Like I had a lot of people believing in me, believing in what I was trying to do, and believing in the story. So that also helped a lot. But I guess I had just a lot of belief in myself and that I was supposed to be doing this. And I was learning. So I was also humble. I was just like, yeah, this is great. Like, I don't care if they think I don't know about this lens or that camera move. I'm learning. So that was really great. So yeah, it was great that I had that sort of fearlessness about me. And then I had enough people to support, they're kind of like, emboldening me and saying, you can do this, because we had some funny things. We got kicked out of sets, I was kicked out off locations.
Why?
We had, Oh God, long
What did
stories. I
you
mean,
do?
no, it's like we were actually being, a friend had allowed us to film in their house, and then when the reality of like a full crew showed up at their house, and it was a lot of actors, they kind of lost it, you know. But there's
Wow.
a saying, I forget, my husband always says the saying, whenever you always lose a friend when you make a picture. You know, I think that was his oh my God, I'm forgetting the film director, but a film director, a teacher at his, he went to the San Francisco Art Institute. And I mean, that is true. Like making a film, especially back then, like I feel like now it's much easier, but we actually shot on film. We shot on 16 millimeter. We did black, we shot on black and white film. And it's just, there's so much involved. But there were
Yeah.
moments when it was a bit overwhelming. I'm not going to lie, you know? But it was still like an incredibly fun ride, and I highly recommend doing it because it's like I felt so alive. I was learning everything, I was trying everything, I was, you know. And the dailies, like we were looking at the dailies at the, you know, we got so much support. Like I think Photokim, I didn't get a, I'm trying to think how I even afforded to make that film because it wasn't cheap. You know, I think I put a lot on credit cards. And but we also got a lot of like gifts and grants and things like that after the fact. But we were looking at the dailies and they were just beautiful. Like the images were just stunning, and everybody was getting behind it. Like everybody was like, wow. And then also, I mean, it was about South Africa, so I got these incredible South African actors to work with me, people from South Africa. And you know, it was basically about this Black girl and this white girl, and trying to find like reconciliation and memory of the past and the violence. But we staged some dancing, we staged, and then they were all South African actors, and they were living in Los Angeles, and it was just like the opportunity to work with them and kind of address some of the subject matter was so meaningful to me that if I had some, like, you know, AC, you know, rolling his eyes at me, I did not care. It was like what I was doing, being able to kind of like connect to this person that had come from the same country that I had come from. And we were trying to find some kind of healing and some kind of peace. You know, it was so meaningful. And I was so grateful to be doing it. And, you know, in the end, everybody was like in good favor and proud of the project. And so it's okay. Like, if I kind of feel like, well, if you have these moments where, you know, I've gotten much better technically as a filmmaker, but you know, my heart is much more in the writing and the directing. I'm much more of a storyteller, but I'm better at like lenses and aperture and f-stop and shutter speed and things like that. And, you know, but my heart is really with the other stuff. But you really do have to, you know, be well-rounded, especially if you want to work in the industry, you know, and especially as a woman, you have to be very sharp and on it technically. Because, you know, I have a friend and she's gone and she's directed a bunch of TV movies, and she went to AFI and got her master's degree, not the directing workshop for women. She went to the actual school, and she says when she goes on set, every single person is just looking at her and like, why are you in that position and not me? And she's just like, that's why she has to be really on top of it technically. So it is but that a little
may
bit.
I ask you something? Is that because she's a woman? Is that still today the issue, or is it just
I mean, I think it's both. I think it's both, but it's much more intense for women. And I don't know if you find that in Europe, but I mean, even here, I mean, there are definitely female directors working in television and making films. And, you know, you might be like really lucky, like look at somebody like Chloe Zhao. I mean, she made these incredible independent films. And then now she probably can walk on a set and people just listen to her, you know. I think if you get to a place where you're such an auteur and people know your style and they're just like love and respect your filmmaking. If you don't know, certain technical aspects or lenses or things, but I'm talking about like the industry, like going in and being hired as a TV director, for 3 episodes, and you're walking into an environment that is just like a crew and they know everything that's supposed to be happening and they've already got their whole world set up, and you have to do these kinds of camera moves. You can't go in there and reinvent the wheel. But yeah, it's still tricky being a woman, looking for work in the film industry in Los Angeles. It's still by no means like an equal opportunity, environment.
Well, the same
as we see that, right?
Yeah. Well, it's the same here in Europe, and it's the same all over the world. And that's why we have this podcast. It's really, we want to, support women that we can, learn from each other and just see like there are multiple ways into the industry. There's not just one formula. Like, get that out of your head. That is not the case. Don't believe it. If somebody tells you that, it's bullshit. Sorry, I'm just going to say that. And listen to all the gorgeous human beings, if you're listening to this, that we have on this podcast, like Gabriela. There's always a way in, just different, multiple ways, and you will find your own.
Yes. And I think, the most important thing is like, just get your stories, make your films, tell your stories. And now it's more important. It's easier than ever. You can just pick up even your iPhone, right? I mean, you can get an incredible camera, like the Black Magic camera for like, I don't know, $3,000 to $4,000, and then record sound. And you can make such a beautiful project. So now it's like, the quality is there. You can make, you can make work so much more easily. And I think the thing is, it's, with the internet, we have gotten rid of the middleman. We really have. So you can just put something up on YouTube and I think the web thing is starting to, come back, or I don't know if it ever went away. But, I do want to make I have a web idea that I've over the years, I've had many like web series ideas, and people have sort of talked me out of them from time to time. Like way back, I wanted to do it. And that was when people were like, oh, looking down on the web series idea. And now it's like, hey, just make your project and get it out there in any way that you can. And I think really as people who might exist outside of the mainstream, now more than ever is a great time to reinvent the wheel and just make your work, get your work out there. There's so many opportunities, put it on YouTube, or, or start your own film festival, or create your own screening series, and really that's the most important thing, is just do the work. And, I see students, like actually yesterday, I'm teaching this beginning class, and I have a student, and they were talking a lot. Their first project is like a point of view project. And they were talking a lot about like, they wanted to explore depression, and I have a lot of students who talk about anxiety and depression, and, and they're younger, and they came of age during COVID, and, this world that is being presented to them of like the environment, and, like the end of the world. They're basically, growing up to the end of the world, which, I do not agree with at all, actually. And, but that's the world that's being presented. And if they don't know, or, if they can't like feel inside of themselves, maybe through meditation or through connection to something higher, a higher energy, a higher source that they are part of, if they can't find that connection, it can be incredibly oppressive. Like, just the world that's being presented to them. So I tell them like, okay, so let's work with that depression, and let's make a project about that depression. And I say the thing about that is, when you make a project about it, it no longer has to like live in your body. You don't have to be weighed down by it. You can free yourself from it, and you can look at it from like an eagle's eye view. So yesterday he's you can tell that he's struggling. And yesterday he showed us this project he made, and it was so beautiful that and it was so simple too. It was just like this he filmed this woman because he explained this moment where you can be talking at a table. You can be talking at a table. I think he was talking about his family life. You can be at the dinner table, and then suddenly you can feel just so alone and so alienated.
Yes.
And that's like this heaviness of depression when it could hit you and you might not be, you don't understand what's happening. And so he made this project of this young girl, and she's at this table, and then you can just tell she's so disconnected. And then what he did is he just played with the focus, and he focused her all the way out, and then he had this other shot where she's just walking, and she's looking at her phone, and she stops in the middle of the street, and she just looks at her phone, and he just held on the shot of her just looking at her phone. And he had this beautiful music, and it was just so heartbreaking, but it also was so connecting because connective. And as some of the other students were it brought them to tears. And they said, because, this world that we now live in, it's both, we use technology to connect us, but it also really alienates us. And he, at the end of him making the film, showing the film and seeing the response, I could tell that he felt so relieved. It was almost like this horrible secret that he had, of these horrible, tough feelings. He could exhale, he didn't have to carry them, And so I'm just a real big believer in making work about those things that, weigh us down and that, prevent us from accessing our divinity.
It's kind of empowering yourself. Then you're taking
you are
power
it's
back.
Healing as
you
well.
are it's healing and empowering. And he took his power back, and he said to me, he said, I've never connected to a class as much as this one. And I was just I just felt
the best.
I'm doing the work, and really what it is through our creativity, we connect to our divinity. Yes. And through our storytelling and our filmmaking, we connect to our divinity. We are supposed to be creative beings. And, I think that when we have AI or whatever do it all for us, we get depressed because, our own creative selves are being squashed, right? Or not being used. And I think that's when the depression really can set in.
Gabriela, can we come to your class?
I actually do want to do a class for just women, I do. I want to create a class, a workshop that we could do. Because I actually have a lot of women who, maybe didn't study film in college or, and now they all want to make films. They all want to tell a story, and they want to and maybe not write a book, or maybe they've written a book. I have a friend who's written a book, but she wants to make a film, so I thought, well, this would be great I cannot tell you how many women I meet who are maybe past college age, and they want to make a film. They want to make film. They want
I'm gonna
so beautiful to hear.
I'm gonna manifest something for us, you girls. Okay, I call everyone girls, just that doesn't matter how old or young you are, I don't care. So Valeria and I, we are working on a project and a program to teach also, as I said, women filmmaking.
Amazing.
And I think, Gabriela, we're going to be contacting you. I have a good feeling about that. We should definitely talk to you about this so that's something we're putting out there, because this Ambitchiously Intelligent, it's this podcast at the same time, and Valeria can talk about it. It's the same time a community we want to build, where we are supporting each other, where we're there for each other, lifting each other up.
That's so amazing, and that's so important. I mean, here in LA, there's some amazing programs. I don't know if you've heard of Film Fatales. That's a good one. They're also New York based. You can, they're a wonderful one. And then there's the Alliance of Women Directors, and they're wonderful. But I think it's also, all of this is good. And I don't know what it's like in Europe, if there is more of that, support and connection and, those organizations. Do you feel that that's there, or?
In a way, I feel it's more about female getting in their own ways, especially like what you've mentioned before about tech. And it's not really that intimidated. It's just there is this gatekeeping in a way in the industry, or even in the independent industry as well. It's like there is some sacred knowledge, and then you're trying to get closer to it. You tend to find people who explain things in a very difficult language, almost like intentionally so. And I can smell the bullshit because I'm coming from the legal world and I studied public international law. And there are people using the language, sometimes you're reading the research, and they intentionally put in there the language that kind of prevents other people from like even, and it's an actual thing. I mean, consciously or subconsciously, they want to be elitist in a way. And I don't believe in that. I don't believe in gatekeeping. I don't believe that knowledge is meant for the particular people, particular gender. It's for everyone. And we just need to go and get it, like we need to find people who can explain in like simple language, who can like get the point across. In reality, you don't need to know everything about everything. You just need to know how to handle the camera, how to do the basic grip, what are the lenses, what is their character, what story are you trying to tell? And it's like, it's not that difficult, really. It's just probably a month of like, like studying if you're doing self-study. But you can even like squeeze this knowledge into like a 1 week course, 1.5 week course.
Because that's not, as you're saying, like that's not what it's really about. It's about, sharing these stories and these experiences. That's what the heart is, and the saying, like, she who tells the story shapes the culture. And it's like, I think there has been a very concerted effort to keep certain people from telling their stories, and I think, it's so true that very that sort of mansplaining. And it's not necessarily even just men, really. It's just more of the industry. It's just the way that it's been structured is to obviously keep certain people out and to keep certain voices out. But we are in a new era, and this is a new time. But also, I mean, right now I think the idea that AI can tell your story, or that some executive can just put in a formula and get a script written, that's an interesting one too, where it's a similar kind of a thing, where it's like, just cut out the heart. It's almost like,
that's what it is.
It's like, cut out the heart, cut out the real experience, cut out the vulnerability, cut out the empathy, and it's like, that's the stuff that it's really all about. That's the stuff that I think, at least I feel like I'm fighting, that's my mission, is
I would love to go to
awaken
that. To your mission, because you said the last gunshot, like you were on set and it was only men, and I would love to go to birth of industry. How was it there? What changed? What did you do differently? Like, did you have more women on board? Like, do tell us about
I mean, so for Birth of Industry, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the film, but it's basically about this. It starts with this woman, it starts with this creature rising up from the ocean. And so basically it's like a sea creature. It's like as if the waves birthed a being. And so she emerges out of the ocean, and she comes onto the shore, and she actually then gives birth, and she gives birth to this little boy. And this little boy becomes it's an allegory. So he becomes the symbol of industry, and then he sort of runs off, and and she follows him, and then like he he cuts off all her hair, and then as he grows, and then he actually like rapes her. I mean, it's pretty intense allegory. And then, they strip her. It's basically, she is a symbol of nature and he is a symbol of industry. So, and then basically towards the end, it's the scene that I told you about where she climbs these stairs, these circular stairs, and she goes up and up and up. And what she arrives at is he is now an old man, and he is basically, it's like he is playing a video game with the destruction of the world, so it's obviously was in some ways a very feminist allegory, because it's nature versus industry. And then what happens at the end is she she confronts him, she looks at him. There's no dialogue in Birth of Industry. It's much more of an experimental film. And so she confronts him, and she opens her mouth like this power, and she opens her mouth, and all this white light just comes out. and she like envelops him with this like source energy of light. And then it was a really elaborate CGI effect. And I had this wonderful guy, a friend of mine, who is a very experienced CGI artist. And so all of these images of like human destruction, she kind of like reabsorbs it. She kind of like wipes it out. And then they end up going back into the ocean. So it's really an allegory of like, almost like, I don't know if you guys are read about Atlantis, or Lemuria. And it's like this idea that humanity has self-destructed multiple times, and then we get another chance and we sort of rebirth. And so it's this idea that, the war or the conflict between nature and industry. So just the nature of that film was so more like, whoa, what the heck, like we have this woman, and she was walking through downtown Los Angeles barefoot, and like this, she had this long veil, and so just by the nature of what it was, people were more open. And I didn't act in that movie. So I was able to really just focus more as a director. I actually ended up working with an incredible cinematographer. His name is Maciej Erdely, and he is from Hungary. He's from Budapest. He was at AFA at the time, but he's actually a very successful cinematographer now. He's done huge movies, huge movies. So he and I worked hard on that. And there were some things, he's amazing, but he's also got a lot of opinions. And I'd done these really elaborate storyboards. They are beautiful. I had an artist do them. And they were works of art. And there were some shots that I wanted to get that he fought me on a little bit. And that was tough. I had to like really put my foot down as a filmmaker. Sometimes I won, sometimes I didn't, but there were definitely more women on set. Costume, cinematographer was male, but AD was male, but then most of the other parts were female. And then I got a grant to make that movie, and we were able to shoot on 35 millimeter. It's really stunning the way it looks. It was in some ways, it was just a different experience. It was a bigger crew. We had a lot of people on set, and we shot at one of the locations was this really beautiful beach called Leo Carrillo and El Matador Straight Beach. And we had to like walk down these stairs, and but it was an amazing experience. And it was really nice like that I could just focus on directing. And I worked with the actors, and both films, like I think I told you, The Last Gunshot got quite a lot of success. We played in over 20 festivals. We won like 4 awards. it was, we got into Luna Fest, which gave us money and took the film all over the country. And then Birth of Industry, we won a Cleveland. We got the Visual Excellence Award. And we did play quite a lot of festivals. It's a much weirder film. It's more experimental. There's no dialogue, but there's some crazy sound design and music. Walter worked on the music, and Evie was in it, but it's much more allegorical. And at that time, our dream was to get into Sundance. I mean, as everybody, but back then everybody was like, you'll get into Sundance. And we got shortlisted where they were like, you're all, we were like we almost got into Sundance, but we didn't get into Sundance with Birth of Industry. And I remember that was such a blow, because I was just like, everybody was sort of like propping me up, like, you'll get in. But I think they were just like, what is this weird film? It was just like, it was wacky. I mean, I love it and I'm so proud of it. But even now, like I screened it a couple of years ago at this kind of more industry event. And I think people were like, huh? Where's the dialogue? And why is she so weird? And like, what the heck? I mean, I'm still in Los Angeles and I think people are just, it's an experimental and it's a challenging film and it's not perfect, but I'm very proud of it. But, and we did play quite a bit of festivals, but I remember then after Birth of Industry, I was like, all right, I want to do something more commercial, because it was just like, and so, and something cheap and easy, because that was like 35 millimeter. There were so many people on the set, and I was just like, why?
That was my question. Why? It's the second film you shot on film, right?
Film, yeah.
What was this choice about? Were you? I mean, I understand. I just want to know why you prefer to shoot on film, because it's a very special.
Well, I mean, this was a long time ago, not to age me, but it was a long time ago. And video was not what it is now. But also we got a grant. So we got a grant from Kodak, Panavision, and a company, Filmmakers Alliance. So we would get all equipment from Panavision. We would get all the processing from Kodak. So it was kind of like had to shoot on film. It was a film grant. And, I was working with a cinematographer. We were using these incredible shift and tilt lenses. I mean, it's a very cinematic piece. It's really, I'm very proud of it. And so happy.
Are we able to see it? Like, can we put in the show notes? Can we have a link to your work that we can share? Like, if you guys are listening.
It's on my website. Okay. It's on my website. I believe the link is, and I believe The Last Gunshot is on my website. I mean, I'll double check if the whole film is on there. So my shorts are on my website. It's also on a few web sites. There's a few websites that are hosting some of my work. So I can put links there too. And but yeah, that was a great experience. I learned a lot, but then I remember coming off of it thinking, okay, this next one I'm going to make small and simple. And now this was at the point where digital video was really like starting to emerge. It was very viable. And so I wrote this really simple script. It's a man and a woman, and it's basically like their different reactions to sex. So the whole thing is like intercutting basically a phone call where she calls him up after, they've had sex, and she's just like longing and wanting this connection. And he's very casual, like nonchalant about it. And so it's just basically two locations. It's the two of them kind of, very beautiful shots of like intimacy and kissing and, all of that kind of stuff. And then intercut with her trying to, call him. And easy to shoot. There were 3 of us on set. The whole thing cost me like $50. And we got into Sundance with that film.
Oh my gosh.
You guys, can we just go there again?
Unbelievable.
It cost her $50 and she got into Sundance. Like,
I know. After Birth of Industry, which cost, it was like maybe a $20,000 short film. and back then that was, even a lot more money than it is now. And yeah, and so that was just like, wow, but it was just so easy to connect to. It was all about intimacy. It's called You Turned Back and Held My Hand. And it's on my website. And it's only like 6.5 minutes. And then and that was just so exciting. But some of those programmers had known me, I'm not going to lie, like it wasn't a blind get into Sundance. And I don't think there ever is. I mean, maybe once in a while, but some of the programmers knew me. They knew that I had done Birth of Industry, and that some of them had said, they had thought that, oh yeah, it would get in. I knew one of the head programmers at that time, even with The Last Gunshot. He had loved The Last Gunshot. So, they had like been seeing my work. But then there was the screening of that short, my new short, with a few other films, and some of the programmers were invited. And so that's when they had first seen it. They saw it like publicly at a screening event. But there was really this one woman programmer who I think really vouched for me and helped me get in. And she's an amazing woman. She's advocating for female filmmakers all the time. Okay. But, it was very eye-opening going to Sundance. I mean, it was an amazing experience. It was so fun, and I think I told you guys that as soon as you get into Sundance, you get emails from CAA and IC, all the big agents. They all want to have meetings with you. It's very exciting. And you get a lot of attention. It's just really fun. And I had another friend who had a film at the time, and so we went to Sundance and met a lot of people. And I mean, it was funny because my film was just like made by me and two people, and it had two actors in it. So it was a little weird because like there were all these entourages, and that's part of what's fun about it, is you go with your people and you all, go to these events. And my film is very vulnerable. Like the lead actress, she's very vulnerable. And she was an amazing actress, but I think she gave up acting pretty soon after that. And she ended up just going into teaching. She was such a wonderful actress. And I met some incredible people, and I got a bunch of meetings. But then I did tell you, they want to see what do you have? What do you have? What's your next project? And so I had this feature that I'd been writing, and it was all about a woman dealing with mental health issues who has to move back home. And kind of like her life had imploded, right? And she was like 40, and she had to move back home and take care of her ailing mother, but she was slowly unraveling. Her mental health was unraveling. And I mean, I went and I had these meetings with some of these executives, and they were just like, why do we want to see a movie about a woman in her 40s with mental health issues? Like, they were just like, they couldn't even like fathom, like, why would anybody want to see that,
You've been a lot of times ahead of time. I can like you have been like just really.
Yeah, I mean listen, there's Gina Rollins. I mean, there's been movies about these issues, but it's just like, I think there are some incredible executives, and I think there are some incredible people who are in gatekeeping positions, and I am ready to meet those people.
Yes, we are. I mean?
Yes. I think I also had a very rebellious attitude, and so I don't know, maybe I kept those people away from me. I don't know. But I was just like, they won't get it, or who, but now I'm like, no, there are a lot of incredible people who are interested in, unique stories and diverse stories, and we are those people. And so whether we meet those people or not, it's up to us to get ourselves into a position of power so that we can make these films too.
Amen.
Because amen. Because it's just like, yeah, I'm excited, and like, wait, pick me, and like, where is my, savior who's gonna love, my work? But it's kind of like, we've got to make our own films. We've got to get financing for our own films, it's and there are people out there who will finance them. So it's just a matter of aligning ourselves with those people. And
Yes.
because the idea that like, oh yeah, they're gonna come and discover you and they're gonna that's not a career trajectory, you know.
No.
Yeah, so then after I had my short at Sundance, then, you know, things got a little bit, I don't know, I was focusing more on writing. And then I, you know, went through some of my own personal stuff, which was pretty tough. And then I made a film with my sister, you know, called Somebody's Mother. It's a feature film and it's all about motherhood. And it's, we used some of our own personal experience. You know, we addressed issues of miscarriage. We addressed issues of infant loss. We addressed issues of, you know, when your child gets taken away from you. So it's like a tough exploration into motherhood. But I mean, it's very cathartic. It's, I do tell people it's like a grief piece. You know, we actually structured it according to the 5 stages of grief. And we had some success with it. You know, we got into some good festivals. We had people coming up to us after the film crying and telling us like it's really helped them process their own losses. And you know, people told us like, oh yeah, you should run grief groups, you should show this in universities. And you know, it's certainly that kind of project. But making it, I acted in this one. I co-wrote it with my sister, but I did direct it. And working with her was really amazing. You know, she's just so full of energy and, you know, not mischief. You know, she's really full of, and she has a real fearlessness about her. And, you know, and at that time, I really needed that energy, you know, to get this film made. Like, I don't know if I would have made that particular film at that particular time, to be honest with you. I think, you know, she really kind of like pushed that process the whole way through. And I'm very proud of it, but it's a tough project. And, you know, after that project, I did get some work. Like I got hired to direct a movie from this company. It was an offshoot of Hallmark, you know, and it was a film. It was a little bit about like loss, but a very TV, you know, like a Hallmarky kind of Hallmark Channel version of that. But I was super excited to get the job. They had hired me as a director, but then they asked me to write some of the script as well, rewrite some of the script. But so I was very grateful to get the job. They interviewed so many people for that film. And the pay was, you know, quite low for the amount of work, but there were so many accomplished female directors vying for this job. And so I felt extremely honored to be the one that they picked. And the woman who hired me was amazing, but she was really having some terrible conflict with the owner of the company. And he was, let's just say, very old school Hollywood. And he was throwing scripts across the room. He was swearing at people and yelling at them, kicking them out of the office. It was a really toxic environment. And so she had hired me. And then she got fired.
Oh, wow.
And when she got fired, then they replaced me. And it was a really weird experience because I had gotten hired I had been approached by a different film who had seen the feature that, you know, we made, Somebody's Mother. And they wanted me to direct their film. And this was in upstate New York in the Hamptons. And it was an independent film, but they were going to pay me. It was about the same amount of money, but there were shooting date conflicts. And so I had gone to this other film and I said, are you sure that we're filming? Because they kept pushing the dates back. And they said, yes, promise you we're filming, we're all moving forward. And then I said, okay, because I'm turning down this other film. And then I turned down the other film, and then they literally came to me through a few days later, and they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're replacing you."
No.
So that
Ouch.
was just like, whoa. That was
Whoa.
just like, what? You know, it was just like, oh my God.
How did you work through that? Because that is intense. Like as actors, you know, we get a lot of no. But I mean, sorry, that is horrendous. That's just not okay.
Yeah.
Like how did you work through that?
I mean,
What was
I
your
was mad.
process?
I was mad. I mean, it was a mixed bag. You know, I had some people saying to me, "Don't make that your second feature. Whatever you do, don't make that. It's a cheesy TV movie. Don't make that your second feature." You know? And the other film, people said the same thing to me. They're like, it's the script is not quite there. Don't make that your second feature. You need to make your own second feature. So it was like, the money wasn't great on either end.
Mm.
And I was just like, well, they're jobs, like I want to get paid to be doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
So it was definitely like, I was mad, I was upset, but I don't know. In retrospect, it's like, I'm looking forward to making my second feature, because it's just like, if I'm gonna get, you do have like the friend I told you about, she's made like 15 of those movies. And they really haven't done much for her career. They're just like very lowy budget TV movies. Listen, I'd be happy for the work. I'd be happy for the work now if I was being hired to direct a bunch of, I mean, like out here in Los Angeles, like people are vying for those jobs, female directors, so many of them. They're like, yes, because it's work. I understand it. It's like everybody's, got these skills. They've been working on making films for years, and it's like, yes, people want to get hired, they want to get paid to be writers and directors, but now it's like, I'm just like, it's okay, like it was upsetting. I also, there were pros and cons, to be honest with you. If in some ways it makes me more determined to continue to make my own work. But and then basically after that, somebody told me, I had a wonderful mentor, I have a few mentors, and she directs a lot of TV, and she said, Gabriela, write something, focus on writing something. So I focused on a TV show that I wrote. It was a play that then I changed into a pilot, and I had a reading, and this wonderful actress who I cast as the lead connected me to this producer, and from that we actually pitched it, and we got a deal with Warner Brothers for this TV show. So that was just like amazing. I got into the guild, I made some money, it felt great, but then the strike happened. And then we survived the strike, but then the deal disappeared after the strike. So, but I'm still working on that project. We're what it's considered in turnaround, so we're gonna go out and pitch it again. One of the producers is connected, I don't know, we're gonna see what's happening, but we're doing that. And then I did make another short film, that we're finishing right now, and looking to make a web series.
Yes,
but and then I shadow directed on some TV shows. That's what a lot of women do. I don't know if that's as common in Europe, but here they have a lot of women shadow direct, where you basically watch the director, and you go in and you.
I'm sorry, can I just ask why? Sorry.
And it's such a privilege here to do that. Like, oh, you got into that program where you get to go and watch. I mean, listen, I think what it is they want you to know the culture of the environment of the TV show. And sometimes they hire you. And there have been women who've been hired. So
got it.
So there is a program that I'm supposed to be following up with, that I'm kind of in the pool of potential shadows. I just have to, I think I have to find my own mentor to shadow.
Okay.
So
Gorgeous. Can I just put it out there? I think someone should be shadowing you. and not the other way around. You have
Yeah.
so much experience, and you, our beautiful listeners, if you're listening, or hopefully watching also, you will see, click on her work, see the links. Like it's amazing what you've done. Your body of work is just very impressive.
Aw, thank you.
So,
I mean, it's exciting. And I mean, listen, that's really only if you want to do the TV route,
got it.
the whole shadowing thing.
Okay, got it.
But that is where a lot of directors, make a living. Like, I
That's
don't know if
good.
you saw just even, the two films, the one that won the Academy Award and The Brutalist.
Mhm.
Oh God, what's the name of the one that won that won the Academy?
Is it Emilia Perez? That one?
Emilia Perez?
No.
No.
The other one about the stripper.
Oh,
It's really
Anora.
good.
That is-
Right.
Anora.
Anora.
Yes, Anora and The Brutalist. Both of those filmmakers came out and said neither one of them are making a living as filmmakers.
It is so sad.
Yes.
It is so
So,
sad.
it's like that TV is where people are actually making a living. But yeah, I'm, listen, I'm inspired, I'm writing, I'm creating, and,
You're
hopefully
on
having a positive impact on my
fire.
students.
Yes, you are.
I'm sure you
And
are.
I think, the more that we do this, the more, like we empower ourselves, we empower each other, that's really what it's all about, and tell our stories. And, and then hopefully through that, we can learn as a species, and we can evolve, and we don't have to, live in the cycle of, destruction. And yeah.
Yes.
Gabriela, this has been amazing. I just want to thank you for this amazing talk. I'm going to go now afterwards and I'm going to meditate.
I love meditation.
I'm like, I need to meditate.
Yes.
You have such a beautiful energy. There's so much going for you. It is amazing, your success. It's really mesmerizing.
Thank you. Well, it's wonderful. You guys are in, across the way, across the ocean. And, I would love to, cross the ocean and come and find ways to work.
Please.
Come
That
to
would be
Europe,
beautiful.
and we could, have our own production company there, and obviously do stuff here too, because, America is still a beautiful place. It is still a beautiful, and there's a lot of hope.
Yeah.
And
But
there's a lot of amazing people here.
Of course, yes,
Yes.
there are. Thank you. This has been amazing. There's
Yay!
so
So
much
let's all
to
go
learn.
meditate. Let's all connect to our community. Let's all tell our stories, and more to come. It's so wonderful talking to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
This-